Good evening, everybody. The time is 5:10 p.m. I'll go ahead and call this evening's meeting of the School Building Committee on Monday, May 23rd to order. We'll start with a roll call. Mr. Allville? Mr. Devon?
Here.
Chairwoman Heeger?
Here.
President Humes? Not here. Mayor Kokoris will be joining us momentarily. Superintendent Lee?
Here.
Mr. Spellman?
Here.
Ms. Siccello?
Here.
And I am here. Thank you very much. Everybody should have received and had an opportunity to review the minutes from our last meeting, which was April 11th. Is there any discussion or comment on those minutes? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. It's been a motion to approve the minutes of April 11th. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been a second by Chairwoman Fisk-Heeger. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? 2 abstentions. Thank you very much. Moving right along to the South Middle School update. And we have with us this evening from Hill our project manager, Doug Murray, and we've got Brian from MDS. Thank you both for being here. And I will turn it over to you, Doug.
Thank you very much. In terms of the progress of the site, on the third page after the meeting notes is your project update. In the last month, we've done the foundations pretty much on the upper level. The retaining wall down to the lower level has been cast just this past few days, and we're starting on the gym level. Rock excavation, rock excavation is going on. That's going to, the first phase is going to tidy up this end of this week. They have not been doing it full time out there, so unfortunately, they're going to be leaving for about a month and then bringing the rock crusher back in the month of June, or I'm sorry, in the month of July to, again, be crushing out on site. That's, unfortunate just occurrence because of the complexity of this site and being able to get a certain amount of work done while they were doing other stuff. So unfortunately, they're going to have to bring that rock crushing equipment back. We do realize that will be in the summer, so we were going to increase the dust control and all the other, anything else we could do to mitigate any work going on. Sewer line and water line at Kenmore Road we're taken care of. The storm drainage systems inside the building have been run out, underground work and from the central courtyard, and we have brought the pad up on the inside of the building. So steel erection began today, which was a good thing to see. Coming out for the next month, we will be doing, the rock and crushing. The footing and foundations will continue at the gym, steel erection, as I just mentioned. And we began this week the underground retention systems over in what used to be the tennis court and the parking lot. And then what we hope at the end of next month, we'll be taking out the modular units that are out there now and beginning the work at the front of the site. Issues out there right now, we still are monitoring schedule. We're on schedule. Steel was a bit delayed getting started, but it's still, the completion date is still the same. With the foundations, we were also a little bit delayed on that, and we're looking at the completion of foundation sometime in mid-June, but that's going to be well ahead of steel for that area down at the gym, which is slated for, the first 2 weeks of July. So, we talked about supply chain lead items. We, every week we talk about it. We know nothing so far has come up that we see as a delay. Obviously, we hear new things every day, so we're going to continue to monitor that. Site work for the summer months, as we talked about, we're trying to accomplish this summer is get out and extend the parking lot in front of what will be the new school, that parking lot, as well as the work down at the east side of the building. We've got a couple other things concerning site conditions. That road to the rear of the rear egress out to Richard Road, that paper road. Some building department issues we wanted to discuss that came up with the building department that we're working on. Protecting the any impact around from that courtyard. We want to make sure that that's a safe situation. and putting a riser up to the roof, a sprinkler riser up to the roof. And then the other big thing that we're trying to sort out now is we are going to be, the electric service coming down Kenmore Road will now be overhead. Braintree Electric has told us they're going to come overhead, set some new poles rather than underground, so we won't be disrupting Kenmore Road for that, as well as the master box from the fire department. Because of the way they're going to Central Station, the master box system we showed is also going to be taken out of the project, and will be going, that fire alarm will notify to a Central Station, American Alarm, or whoever's, monitoring the situation, just like the security system will, and how other town buildings are being done. So that's where we are. I'm on the upcoming milestones, kind of modified that a little to show some of the new work that's coming on. Obviously, the rock crushing, which I put in as phase 2, which we'll be looking at coming back in July, and then starting to break up, mechanical rough. And we'll start, as we start to do light gauge framing around the building, they'll be able to start working inside the building with mechanical, electrical, and plumbing rough equipment. And so that's kind of the status update. I can move it into finances.
Does anybody, before we move to the finances, are there any questions on the status of the work on the site? Mr. Devon, certainly.
Thank you. You said that you have to bring the rock crushing back. We know that we had a cubic foot estimate.
Yes.
Were we above that estimate?
The rock excavation in the building pad is below that estimate. Right now, the site excavation for rock is above that estimate, and the trench rock is also is at 100% right now. So while we still have money in that allowance for the rock within the building, I wouldn't count on it, getting it back. Let's put it that way.
I'm surprised it wasn't quite more. The point of my question is, we know we're crushing rock, and we have to store that in a certain position, so to speak, and deal with it on site. And yet we're also trying to deal with some of the topsoils. So we've got a pretty crowded site up there. And have we had to remove any topsoil or any soils off-site, so to speak?
They took some topsoils off as much as they could, but the problem with the topsoil is now it's become economically infeasible to remove some of it, so they're working around it on site, and that really is the contractor's responsibility and their decision. So if they keep it on site, we're making sure they maintain it, and they get a water truck up there to hose it down and things like that.
Okay, I thought something like that would rear its ugly head. Well, what else was I going to ask? We know that at one point in time there was an old water line that was above grade, and we were going to have to deal with that. Has a decision been made?
The final decision hasn't been made after discussion with the fire protection contractor, Cogswell. They are looking at they looked at the new flow tests that were run, and from what we understand as of today, this afternoon, which could change tomorrow morning, we would not need to relocate that line because, fingers crossed, because the flows are still sufficient enough that domestic water is not a problem. We have a pump for domestic water anyways, but the flows will be good enough with the fire pump that actually isn't. I believe they brought in an upgraded fire pump simply because of the way they're designing the system. The fire protection is a design build. We establish a criteria, but it is up to the contractor to design the final system.
Okay,
so as it stands now, we're not going to have to relocate that water line. However, no final decision's been made.
It'd be nice if that isn't there, because it can impede work, one.
Yeah.
Two, it might be redundant for what the needs might be. Yeah. So if something like that goes away, it will help, and every little bit helps. My last question is, have we come up with a plan as to what we're going to do with the temporary classrooms?
I can actually, Doug, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go right ahead.
So we have been working kind of as a team effort on what to do with the modular. So just by way of background, since this is something we've had some discussion about, there are 2 modular units at South that the town owns, and there are 2 modular units that are part of a lease that dates back to 2001 that has been extended year over year and currently goes through summer of 2024 and includes not just those 2, but 2 units we have at, help me out, Superintendent, Highlands, thank you. And so looking first at the two that we own, we kind of brought in the building inspector, the facilities director, and the town engineer to work with the superintendent and Mr. Cronin and Doug to kind of get the process in place to relocate those two units because they're still very much usable for us and there is a need to use them at one of our other elementary schools. And so working with that team and also understanding that Bacon is responsible for the dislocation of those units from the building, we are responsible for moving them. So we are in the process of finalizing the plans, not only to relocate them, but also then to hook them up and make them usable for Flaherty School come the fall. We have already confirmed that the area at Flaherty is satisfactory to house those units and we'll be able to relocate and reconnect those to the buildings for use at that property. Looking at the other two, we're in the process of negotiating what is effectively an amendment to the current lease that we have that goes until July of 2024 that will either include some kind of buyout of the two that are currently at South because we don't have a use for those anymore, and whether the company wants to demolish them or relocate them and what the costs associated with that are ongoing as part of a contractual negotiation with the company that owns them. Our contract is with M Space Holdings, but Vesta Module is the company, the parent company that's responsible for those discussions. So we're still very much on track to have those moved for July 1 so that the work can continue on schedule in that area without disruption or delay.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions on substantive project status? I will also say we just recently got the latest drone footage, really incredible. I can't plug those enough. That and the time-lapse camera, really great for folks who can't get out to the site to get a real sense of the progress that's happening month to month over there. So I would encourage everybody to take a look at those.
Yep.
If there are no other questions, we can go right into the finances. Doug, thank you.
Okay, on the project update, down the bottom of the page there, financial overview, we are still well within budget. We have moved a couple of costs, which I'll describe in a few minutes, from uncommitted costs to committed costs. That's in the design services in the administrative areas. Authorized change orders are now at $97,292. And that's over in the budget column, authorized changes. But again, that's a deduction from the hard cost contingency. As for the invoices, you see at the top of the page, this is the page following the spreadsheet, the large sheet. The 4 PCOs that were approved or 5 PCOs approved this month for underground sanitary, deletion of stormwater revision, adhered insulation at the canopy, the roof canopy, the canopy at the front of the school. We didn't want to see screws poking through the metal deck, so we approved that insulation to be glued down rather than screwed down. There was some additional excavation at the bus loop. We relocated a hydrant out there and hit ledge, and as we discussed earlier, we had money for the ledge. What we didn't have money for was the backfilling every day so the bus loop could function. We had to do the work between the drop-off in the morning and the period in the afternoon and then plate over it and cap it every night, so we did have to do some work there. The media center roof drains, we had shown roof drains as part of the roofing system, but upon review, we needed to get a regular plumbing type roof drain in there rather than a poke through, which had been part of the roofing system. And then there was a conflict between some of the steel beams and the exterior windows at one wall, which is unfortunate, something that we missed in coordination. So that was about $41,199 in change orders approved this month. And then our invoices, Hills invoice, $43,000. Briggs Testing, that is our testing agency, which is doing concrete tests out there in soil compaction, and then we'll be moving into steel inspection as steel erection begins. And for $14,124 and change, and then Bacon's requisition for last month. The April requisition was $2.684 million, and that includes the we deduct 5% retainage from, so it doesn't particularly line up with their requisition. You have to do the math, and I did include a sheet there which shows that deduction. So that's pretty much where we stand with the budget. We still believe we're well within budget, and we have funds available to keep moving.
Does anybody have any questions on the finances? Mr. Devon?
You mentioned there's a coordination issue between our structural steel and the fenestration window systems?
Yeah. It was at the very end of the job, before bidding, some of the steel depths were modified, and it just did not get traced out and reflected. So there was a conflict with the window head.
So that's something
That should have been-
all of it falls upon us to pay for that?
No, I mean, if you wanted to pursue, the architect for it or the engineer, that's something you could do. It seems when you project against the entire budget, there's a reason we hold contingency, is sometimes things like this happen. And if you bought it, we caught it early, we corrected it before we had to. It just mattered that they had bought the raw material, so that steel, we had to replace that steel.
It's been my experience that if I'm, shall we say, running a job, MEP, if I make a mistake, I have to eat some of it.
Yeah.
Okay?
But I think
Not
in the end,
owner, not the owner.
I know, but I think in the end, what you have to do is you have to get through or further enough through the job and look at where you gained and where you did gain, because a lot of times you don't see the effort that goes into, if we save you money, we don't get money back from you for saving you money.
I hear what you're saying.
And that doesn't start when we signed the construction contract. That started 2 years ago or 3 years ago when the job started, I think. And I don't want to get emotional about it, but
No,
having been an architect
please.
myself, or still an architect myself, we work hard, they work hard to control these things, and you spend a lot of time on value engineering and stuff like that, and it balances out.
Well, it's construction, nothing's perfect. It's perfect on paper. When you get out in the field, things change. It's just, if you're going to have that philosophy where, okay, there's going to be some give and some take, I can understand that. All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Greatly appreciate it.
Any other questions on the finances? So one other announcement as it relates to South, we talked the last time at our meeting about getting everybody back together on the site for a topping off ceremony. So we have confirmed as of earlier today, thank you very much to the team at Hill and absolutely specifically to Principal Rainey for helping to coordinate us on the property. Friday, June 17th at 10 a.m. We will be hosting the topping off ceremony where the kids are going to have an opportunity to sign the beam. We'll have a really nice ceremony and would absolutely invite everybody to join us on site. And we'll send out invitation and more detail as the date gets a little closer, although it is already pretty close. And we hope everybody can join us there for that. Anything else, Doug?
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. So David Billings couldn't be with us today, so I'm going to provide a fairly brief update on East, and then the idea is he will be with us next month where he'll do the formal closeout presentation and give us kind of final updates on numbers and status. But I am happy to report that the last construction related issue on the site related to the front sidewalk at the school. Shawmut started the work on the sidewalk last Monday or 2 Mondays ago, the 16th, where they were grinding down the front edge level with curb, and by all accounts the work was looking even and clean. They finished the work that day and are scheduled to go back this Friday, the 27th, to caulk the joint between the concrete and the curb. The thought process was to wait for Memorial Day weekend, so after the work was done, there's less foot traffic in front of the school to allow that all to cure properly. The work that they did to remedy the issue we were having there was based on the recommendations of the design team, and it was also reviewed by the town engineer to make sure that it was going to satisfactorily address the heaving issues that we were having on that front sidewalk and prevent it from happening going forward. So once that is completed this Friday, that is the last outstanding construction issue we have with Shawmut at East. The only other item that we're looking at is the grass areas where they did work last fall is not really coming up well, so they put down more seed and fertilizer, and we're working to make sure that it stays watered if we continue to experience a lack of rain, and hopefully we see some grass growth there. With that being done, they're going to close out the grading permit with the planning department. And once that's done, we'll get final certificate of occupancy, allowing us to do the closeout with the MSBA. So again, everything I'm not going to say moving on track because I think we're fairly off track at this point, but everything is moving in the right direction. And I would anticipate that at our June meeting, we'll be able to do the closeout and also schedule our formal grand opening and celebration over at East, which we talked a lot about last time as well. So if there are questions, I would encourage the committee to bring them to our next meeting where David is here and he can address those and we can close that project out. Is that sufficient for everybody? Doug?
I'm south that I forgot to bring up.
Sure.
At the back of the package, I had mentioned when we were looking at the big sheet that the uncommitted cost had been moved over into the committed cost section. And at the back of the package, there was the amendment number 7 for designer services, which we are submitting for acknowledgement. And that covers fees that we knew were coming. We just had never contracted or signed a contract for them before. And that included the geotechnical services during construction. That's for our geotechnical engineer to monitor the placement of footings and foundations. And then the lead work that we've done to get lead certified, there's a registration fee and a review fees and things like that. That was $89 or $8,200. During the grading permit, we had to do an 81X plan to combine the 4 lots on the site. And so that was $3,800. And then there was a reimbursable expenses of $5,000 put in on a to be used as needed basis, but we need to have a contract in place to bill against it. So we wouldn't bill anything without your permission, but it's just there. And so that was also attached to the package.
Doug, what was the total value of the amendment? Do you know offhand? I can do the math.
Yeah, you're gonna ask me that.
I have the 58,965, 8289, 3850, and 5,000.
Yes.
So we would be looking for a motion acknowledging these amendments to the existing contract to cover the geotechnical monitoring services as well as other items identified by Doug as it relates to the contract for designer services with Miller Dyer Spears. Do we have a motion to acknowledge? Been a motion made by Superintendent Lee. Is there a second? Been a second by Mr. Allville. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you, Doug, for the reminder. Okay, so moving right along, we've got a couple roof updates. Just generally so that folks are aware, with our roofs at Highlands and Liberty, we are on track to submit the next batch of documents to the MSBA, which is going to include the 60% design development submission. It has been a little while since Rob Tedisco from P3 has been with us. I'm going to invite him to join us at our next meeting to provide presentation and update on where we stand with those. But what we're really going to talk about today is our next accelerated repair projects with the MSBA at Flaherty and Hollis, and I'm happy to introduce Brian LaRoche, who's here with us this evening from PCA 360. They have been assigned to these projects through the MSBA along with BWA Architecture Inc. Both PCA 360 and BWA have been assigned to both projects at Flaherty and Hollis, so we'll be working with them moving forward. And we have contracts for project management services and design services that were provided. And rather than simply sign the contracts, I wanted to introduce Brian to the committee and give folks an opportunity to ask any questions or to give Brian an opportunity to tell us a little bit about PCA and then request approval to execute both of those contracts by the town. So Brian, I will turn the floor over to you.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me tonight. As I was introduced, Brian LaRoche with PCA 360. I've been with them for 19 years performing this role, so we had a lot of roof projects under our belt, so we're pretty well experienced at this, but we're happy to be working with you on this. So we have 2 projects for you. Roof accelerator repair program, one for the Flaherty and one for the Hollis Elementary School. So at this point, we're at the very beginning of the project for with the MSBA. They've given us the assignment, and so we prepared contracts for the schematic design phase. And so tonight, we're here to present both the OPM contracts for the 2 schools and also for BWA architecture for theirs as well. And that's where we're at. Once we get approval to proceed, the plan would be to get the schematic design package ready for September 1st. That's the deadline to go to the MSBA so that we could be at their October 26th hearing. And then the project would be submitted to them for their approval. And then after that, it would come back to you for an appropriation. And then once that happens, we would be able to proceed into the construction documents. So I kind of anticipate the end of December into January before we would move the project into the real design phase beyond schematic design.
And Brian, it looks like the design service contracts for Hollis, we're looking at a not to exceed of $57,100, and on Flaherty, $68,700. And for OPM services, we have Flaherty at 5,000, and is Hollis the same, 5,000?
Hollis is at 10.
10,000. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Brian? Not yet. Your time will come, I have no doubt.
Okay.
I think that we can probably do these as a batch. So we would then, if there are no questions or further discussion, we would be looking for a motion allowing for execution of the contracts for project management and designer services for the accelerated repair projects at Flaherty and Hollis. There's been a motion made by Chairwoman Fisk-Heeger. Is there a second? Seconded by Superintendent Lee. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you very much, Brian, for being here. We look forward to seeing you again in the
Forward to seeing you
future.
again as well. Okay.
Okay, so, and with that, I do want to recognize, I know we have Principal McDonald here with us this evening. Thank you for joining us. Assistant Superintendent Miller is here. Mr. Cronin, School Committee Member Kathy Tuffy is here. Thank you for coming. And on the town side, Director of Facilities Mike McGurty. So thank you to everybody. And Brian Pace from MDS is here as well, of course. Are there any community questions from the group? No. Okay, seeing none, we'll go on to setting the date for our next meeting. So pulling out the calendar, we would be looking to June, probably, say Monday, June 27th, unless Doug, you tell me there's a need for us to meet sooner. Oh, I hope somewhere nice. Does June 27th at 5 o'clock work for folks? Okay, great. So tentatively we'll plan for that here in Cahill Auditoriums. And before we adjourn, I just want to thank Bill and Jerry from BCAM for recording us this evening and for being with us tonight and during all of our meetings. Thank you both very much. And if there's nothing further, I will take a motion to adjourn. There's been a motion made. Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. Great. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank you.